Roughly, enterprise architecture has three main goals. One is to manage the complexity and change of the enterprise. So the business is changing, the world that the business is in is changing, the technology that the enterprise is built on is changing. They're all changing differently, and we need to manage the systems we have and build new systems. So that's a pretty hard problem. Enterprise architecture gives us techniques to understand the big picture, understand how to manage the complexity of all the moving parts, and to factor in areas to support change. So I like to think about enterprise architecture as managing complexity and change, but at the same time, it has to do it in a way that aligns the IT systems with the goals and strategy of the business and deliver value to the business. So to me, that's what it means. Well, it's easy to look at organizations that didn't use enterprise architecture, which really is most companies didn't have it, say, 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. And if you look at those companies, they have a lot of redundancy, many systems that do the same thing, many stores of data that store the same data but in a different way, a lot of unnecessary complexity and cost. Sometimes it's just the cost of having 5 databases when you only need one, but often it's the cost to the business of not being able to deal with the customer in a single consistent way. And when customers don't like you, they leave. Often it's the cost of the business of having these systems that can't be connected so that your competitors move forward and you don't. So the value that enterprise architecture brings is it allows us to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of our IT systems over time, to keep the complexity low, keep the flexibility high, so that we can be the companies that move forward and leave the other competitors behind. It's a huge, complex set of systems. Architecture gives us a way to think about them all. So enterprise architecture is an overall architecture that we usually divide into subjects, or what we call architectural domains. And the typical domains are business architecture, information, application, and technology. So the business architecture part of enterprise architecture helps us understand the business in terms of its strategies and goals, what it's trying to achieve, and what kinds of business capabilities it needs to achieve those strategies. We try to keep the business architecture in business terms and to keep the technology terms out of it, so that we have a more effective communication with the business and a better alignment of business to IT. Then the information, application, and technology architecture talk about the information systems that we use to support that business. The information architecture describes what information the business needs to make decisions and execute processes. The application architecture describes the processes and the systems and how they all connect together in the enterprise. And the technology architecture describes the platform of technology that supports the applications that manage the information and processes that support the business. Service-oriented architecture is one way to implement the business processes of an organization. So sometimes I think about service-oriented architecture as a little subset of enterprise architecture. We think about what services we need in terms of business capabilities, so the business aspect, and then there's an information, application, and technology component that we use services as the implementation technique. This has been a good workshop, a good team. I have good participation, good questions. They laugh at my jokes, so of course that's important. No, I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with INFOTEC. I think architecture is a growing opportunity, especially in consulting and in the Latin American region. There's a growing demand for architects. There aren't very many architects around. So my ability to help companies in Latin America implement architecture has been restricted by the shortage of architects. So here, to me, this is a great opportunity for me to get the chance to work with Latin American companies and introduce architecture and work with a bunch of really smart people here at INFOTEC to teach them to be architects so that we can work together to help companies here. Well, hopefully they're going to learn something from it, right? But one of the things I show in the workshop is there's a model that says how we learn, and we start from a little bit of knowledge where we don't know very much. I say we don't know what we don't know, and we learn what we don't know, and now we have the opportunity to practice those things that we think will be useful for us to become practitioners in that space. So I think that most of the participants came into the workshop not really understanding how the opportunities that architecture presents or how broad the field is and how many different things an architect might do. Hopefully, at the end of the class, they'll know what they don't know. They'll have learned a few new techniques and have identified areas that they'd like to learn more about. That I hope I get the opportunity to help them become skilled practitioners in those areas.